Hello, welcome to the Gab and Jules show. I'm Jules, and it's slightly different today because I'm here in London in our usual studio. But Gab is across the pond in the US right now in Philadelphia. Gabby, I know we're not in front of each other, but really in spirit, we are still close. So let's do this show together because there's loads to talk about. The Club World Cup, obviously, that has started. There's a bit of Gold Cup. There's a lot of transfer news. There's even somebody that we will have to call Sir from now on. Where do you want to start? PSG Atletico, I guess?
I bet you're dying to start with PSG
Come
Atletico
on.
because you know what? It's not just Inter who are bad and get spanked by Paris Saint-Germain. It's of course Atletico de Madrid as well. Jules, I've been out there now a couple of days. It's really interesting so far. It just doesn't feel. I'm being honest. I'm telling you what I see. I'll be going to my first game in a few hours tonight. Flamengo against Esperance. It doesn't feel like a big event. Maybe we were colored by our experiences in Qatar or at the Champions League final when there's signage all over the centers of town. But you know, here in Philadelphia, which is like a game every other day, yeah, there are fans on the street, but you don't have all those signs. You don't have any of that. It just feels like this competition was thrown together very quickly.
Yeah, which we said before, but maybe it will grow. Let's hope it grows because so far it's been good on and off the pitch, I think.
Yeah, and we're going to start with the champions of Europe.
Who's that again?
Paris Saint-Germain.
Hey!
Fun fact, Jules, about this is that, and we've been through this, and there's reasons for this, but Paris Saint-Germain had already qualified for the Club World Cup. But if they hadn't, and they had won the Champions League, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But as it happens, they took on Atletico Madrid, and I'll tell you what, Atletico Madrid didn't look like the side that had time off and had time to prepare for this competition. Paris Saint-Germain did not look like the side that are supposedly tired and having played late. I thought they really took the game to them and pretty much ripped them apart.
Yeah, I thought it was an outstanding performance. I wasn't sure really because there was no Ousmane Dembele who's picked up that little injury with France, who should miss as well the Botafogo game, so the next game in this group stage. There was no breaks really anywhere for those players because after the Champions League final, they went with their national teams and they played, and then they went straight from there to the US. They arrived on Tuesday, and I wasn't sure if they would be sharp, if they would be ready, if maybe they would just need a game to get going again. And actually, from pretty much the first minute, we saw that they were ready for it. The sharpness really impressed me, considering the game was at noon on the West Coast. It was already really hot in Pasadena where they played, and yet they just moved that ball so well. Their movement, again, the fluidity that they did within the structure, we've explained it so often, was really outstanding. And in the end, they had 74% of the ball. And I think we expected Atletico to defend like they usually do. Their 4-4-2 could be quite solid at time, but they were just outplayed. Defensively, they were all over the place. And this PSG team that was the strongest team possible, apart from Dembele that was replaced by Gonzalo Ramos, was just once again outstanding, especially in that midfield.
On the Atletico Madrid thing part, it looked to me like they weren't 100% there, maybe mentally either. I'm thinking of the All Black situation where, okay, we can say it was a foul, it's not a foul, whatever, but dude, there's a guy standing right there. You should know that. And then, of course, that incredible miss from
Sola,
the only living Solo in captivity. Did they seem up for it, or was it just a case of between the heat, between not having the ball, between Paris Saint-Germain moving the ball well, you just chalk it up to that?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe a little after 15 minutes, they made 7 passes. They had 10% of the ball. They just ran after it. And I think when you start like that, in this heat and at this time, and again, considering, like you said, they've just met again together after they had a bit of time off themselves between the end of La Liga and this competition. It can't be easy to go straight back in. Usually, in preseason, you play a team from the Spanish 10th division or Australian 10th division, wherever you are in your preseason, and then you get going slowly. This time they went straight in against the best team in 2025, really. So it was never going to be easy. But I think you're right. We probably expected more than the one shot on target that they had, the 5 shots in total. And if Solo scored that goal, which he should, it's a tap in, really. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Then they come back to 2-1 down with 10 minutes to go. Maybe that can change a little bit. But PSG could have been 4-0 up by then already. Kvaratskhelia hit the woodwork as well. They had other chances. Oblak made a couple of good saves. So
Yeah.
it was still very dominant from Paris.
We're going to break this down a little bit further. There's the different dynamics of this competition on the Gavin Jules podcast. All right, Jules, let's get into this a little bit further. One thing, and we've said this is a new competition, right? But one thing that sets it apart, and one of the many things that we're going to have to get used to if this competition survives, is just simply the flow. The fact that when we think about sort of proper World Cups, so to speak, what we have is we have a break at the end of the season. Players usually go on holiday for a week, and then they come back, and then they're together for a good 10 days, 2 weeks. They might play a friendly in there, and then they'll play the actual competition. That hasn't happened, and I'm thinking, I mean, we were talking off air there about Atletico Madrid. It's got to be weird because their season, it's not just that their season ended when it ended, but it was also like it kind of fizzled out. They had very little to play for. They were kind of going through the motions the last 3-4 games, had ups and downs. And then it's the end of the season. It's like, okay, bye. Everybody goes on holiday. And then they come back and they only have a couple days and they have to kind of get G'd up for this competition, which, again, people can sneer about, but it's certainly important. It's certainly prestigious. It's a difficult act. It's a difficult way for Simeone to set up, right?
Yeah, and especially if your first game is PSG. If you play Auckland like Bayern, then that's fine because
that's your friendly.
Yeah, exactly. That's your usual preseason first friendly when the players are just back. You've done a bit of fitness work, but not too much because you don't want them to go too hard straight away, and then you go gradually. So in that case, the draw favored teams like this team like Bayern, for example. In the other hand, this the worst draw for Atlético, and it could have been the same for PSG, except that because of the Champions League final and before that the French Cup final, they finished the Ligue 1 season. The weekend after that was the French Cup final. The weekend after that was the Champions League final. The weekend after that was the Nations League for the international players or the qualifiers for the World Cup. And the day after that, they came to the US and continued training. So they've never stopped training, really. It's much harder, obviously, for a professional player at that level to stop on holidays. Even if they don't really stop, they keep running, they do a bit of fitness work and gym work, all of that, but it's still not the same. And then to go again, especially for a game like this at that time, in that heat, against a team like that plays so well. I mean, PSG made 3 times more passes in the game than Atletico Madrid. Yeah, this is just says it all.
All right. You're rubbing it into Atleti.
I'm just
saying. Sounds very nice. But Atleti also, they weren't very happy with some of the officiating decisions and the way things went.
Yeah, that's right. We heard Koke saying like, "Oh, everything went PSG's way. The referee was not good." I think Simone was a little bit frustrated as well with that. There was a goal disallowed for Julien Alvarez. Where I think it was the right call. There was clearly a foul before on the way that then led onto the goal, but it's just you just got spanked, and I just don't think it's nice for them because now also they find themselves under pressure going into the next 2 games. Okay, they play Seattle next, but then they will have Botafogo, and it might all go down to that Botafogo game, which with the goal difference as well, it could be tricky to manage for them. So you can understand a little bit. I was a bit more disappointed by Simeone saying, well, PSG are a great team. They're young, but look at, they were looking for a left winger in January, and what did they do? They spent 70 million on Kvaratskhelia, and basically saying when you can do that, it's like you kind of cheating a bit. I mean, this is an Atletico team that has cost a lot of money. Not even looking at Joao Felix or other players that Simone has bought in his time at the club that cost a lot of money too. So I'm not sure that comment on spending 70 million on a player was really valid from him.
Shots fired. I think what I might say is that it's maybe a little bit out of date in the sense that it's not this team is built with a shoestring. And even this narrative, Jules, of, oh, look, they have all these they decided with young French players. I mean, they were what, two French players in the starting lineup that started the Champions League final. So it hasn't been immediate. What they have done, they have spent money, just that they've changed the model, spending it on younger players. And also one other thing, which I think a lot of people seem to forget, and it's partly our fault. I haven't really spoken about it, but the two teams in the Champions League final, Inter and Paris Saint-Germain, for different reasons, both of them were under financial fair play settlement when they played that game, and they have been all season because of breaches of financial fair play in the past.
Yeah.
So they were both under restriction. I mean, if you want, you can say the difference is that if Paris Saint-Germain hadn't been under restriction, they could have chucked a ton of money around, whereas Inter probably couldn't have if they hadn't been under restriction. But, they both had these limits. So, yeah, the Kvaratskhelia comment, I think, frankly, is a little bit silly because you could also turn it around and say, oh, yeah, and then Paris Saint-Germain's most expensive and highest paid player also left the club on a free transfer, right? So you could turn it around and move to Madrid, funnily enough. But you know what? I don't mind this bitterness. I don't mind the fact that, Coque and Simeone are getting chippy, because it makes it feel like a real competition,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. They clearly care. I mean, you could see at the end, you saw the reaction of Simeone when Soloth missed that sitter, because again, like we said, you come back to 2-1 down with 10 minutes to go, and you just don't know what can happen. And Simeone was literally on his knees, not believing that the best super sub in the season, the guy who always comes off the bench to score, Atletico's actually top goal scorer this season, or the season that just finished, just missed that one that could have changed maybe a little bit the end of the game. So clearly they care, which is a really good thing. And really, I know Botafogo won against Seattle. We'll talk about that a bit later, not in the most convincing way. So Atletico can still qualify and finish in the top two places of this group, and then see in the knockout stages they will feel better physically. They will probably be better as well, that they've reached that stage, and that the money will also come in, and they will have more training together, all of that. So it's just one game, obviously.
I'm going to leave with these two thoughts. One, to Sorloth, thank you for, you could have missed your sitter against Italy a couple of weeks ago. No, you had to miss it in this game. That's kind of annoying. And as much as people go on about Jean Neves and Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, man, the elegance of the man, the relatively big fella spreading the ball with such grace. I think Fabian Ruiz goes under the radar. Am I a little bit wrong in this Paris Saint-Germain team with so much bling, so many glittering stars, and Doué and Dembele when he's there, and whatever, and Big Gigio? Does the mainstream media kind of underappreciate my man Fabian a little bit?
I think they do, Gav, and it's a bit the same with Spain as well, where you feel like he's such an important part of that team, especially when they won the Euros, that people didn't talk enough about him and what he brings to his teams, both PSG and Spain, in terms of balance, in terms of work rate, in terms of finding the right pass. The football IQ is obviously out of this world. And then again, when you have him complementing Joe Neves' qualities and Vitinha's qualities in that midfield three, plus all the little changes and switches and stuff that Luis Enrique does for Hakimi to come in midfield, or for one of the forwards to drop into midfield, or Nuno Mendes to be there, it becomes very difficult for the opposition to deal with it. And especially for Atletico in a 4-4-2, that meant you only had two central midfielders against them three, and they were always a man down. They were always struggling for where the ball was. And Fabian Ruiz really links all of this together. And again, the balance that he brings to this team, he's not the most flashy, as you said, although he's very elegant, but not the most flashy in what he does with the ball, but certainly the most important.
All right, it's a good place to end it there. The elegance of Fabian Ruiz.